Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 8th. The time is 5:39, and we are here today at the City Hall at the City of Coppell for our regularly scheduled City Council meeting. There is a quorum present. We have virtual and individuals here in person. So I had called the meeting to order, and we will start with executive session, and we'll be back shortly for work session. Thank you.
The numbness is still there. Surgery, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Not yet, not at all. No, I'm making it. My doctor said cut that down. You only past 6, 7. Nerve block. They call it.
Has to wear.
UT, so I called the guy and said,
Can we see Mark on our Mark? There he is. Presto. Okay. So the time is 6:01, and we are moving into work session. Tonight we have items A through E, and item A is discussion regarding agenda items. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about agenda items? Just to, Mr. Mark?
Yes, item number 12. I was emailing with Bob regarding a conflict of interest on that. Now, obviously, I don't have any business interest, but I feel from a personal standpoint, being on the Lakes Coppell HOA board for so many years and being close friends with several of the board members and friends with all of them, that I think I need to abstain from any discussion and any vote.
Okay, so is it abstention or is it a conflict of interest?
Well, technically, it's not a conflict of interest because the reading the form, there's nothing in there that there's a business interest
Okay,
at hand. But morally, I think there's a conflict.
okay.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, and looking at this with Councilman Hill, it's clear that there's not a conflict of interest under 171 of the Texas Local Government Code. However, we have more stringent requirements through our ethics ordinance, and it's really close on the ethics issue, and I believe Councilman Hill's decided that discretion is a better part of valor in this case, and I would agree with him. And so if he would just fill out the form in Agenda Item 12, I'll put those sections in out of our, I think it's Article 1-13, number 4 and number 5, which may be applicable here, and that would disqualify him from participating.
Okay, so but is it like the conflict of interest where he removes himself?
Yes.
Okay, so
And the reason I say yes is because we do have sanctions available to that, and I don't want to put Mr. Hill through that nor the council through that when it's just absolutely not necessary. And I'll take Mark at his word that he feels he's too close and that he may be biased one way or another. So,
okay. So in this particular and in these unusual times, which I'm very tired of saying that, is his being on mute and being not on video,
that is sufficient.
that is sufficient?
Yeah, our ethics ordinance says the person should not remain in the room and not participate. So I think if he goes on mute and we don't see him, that would qualify him to be out of the room during the consideration of that event.
So, Mark, does that make you comfortable? Now you're muted, though.
Yes, that does make me comfortable.
Okay, so when that item comes up, I will just say that you are abstaining from
Yeah, I think the word is
participation?
disqualified under the
Disqualified?
ethics
Okay.
ordinance, and that he will be on mute and will exit from appearance.
our
So I need
first
to get
one.
you this.
So it's our first recusal with Zoom, so everyone will do the
Okay,
best we can. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you for bringing that up, Mark.
So is it a recusal, I guess, as opposed to a disqualification, or does it matter?
Recusal is fine.
Recusal? Okay. Disqualification sounds like somebody else did it. Recuse
Yeah.
means sounds like you did it.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. Just an FYI, I talked with our city attorney about this, and Mr. Bob said that we can call the public hearings open for each 9, 10, and 11, and then we will hear the comments on all of those and then close all of them together, because that'll just make it easier, because some of the comments that we have, and it looks like there's 3 or 4 at this point, but there might be more, it's really hard to distinguish exactly which item that they're going to be talking about. So we're just going to open them all up, take in all of the comments, and then we will close them all together.
Mayor,
Yes, sir?
I did have a question about a consent agenda item, D.
D as in dog?
D as in dog.
Okay.
just a curiosity, why is it that we're going to go ahead and buy a $200,000 piece of capital equipment when I thought we were deferring most of those purchases this year?
All right, so about, I don't know, was it about a month ago?
Probably.
Yeah, about a month ago, when I came to council, I talked about the status of the sales tax, that we had already exceeded what we had budgeted for when we did the amended budget back in May. And again, forgive me for Jennifer's hopefully listening. I believe we had budgeted around 14.3, and we were already at about 15.5. And we projected by the end of this fiscal year we'd be closer to about 18, a little over 18 million. And I came to the council and talked about I'd like to move forward with the capital purchases that we did put on hold. And at that time, I received the green light from the council to go ahead and move forward. And I believe those purchases totaled in the neighborhood of around $600,000 to $700,000. And so this is one. The water truck, the infamous last 2 weeks ago, we purchased the for the Parks and Recreation Board, the water truck. Yeah, 2,000 gallons. So to Councilman Mays, I had the impression that we had the green light based on the fact that our sales tax was coming in much higher than our projections back in May. So Jennifer, was I pretty close on the numbers?
Yeah, we're estimating about 19 million.
Right. And we had budgeted 19.6, I think, or 19.7. So from where we were in May to where we are now based on sales tax, even though we have made all these other reductions and everything in terms of expenses on the capital side, because we had reduced our capital for next year, this allowed us to go ahead and move forward now.
Well, that I completely understand and it makes sense, but I honestly do not remember that conversation that we had. But
okay,
like I said, it does make sense.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Item B, discussion regarding, thank you, Jennifer. Discussion regarding FY 2021 work plan. And we have Miss Tracy here at the City of Coppell.
That's right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am excited to be with you this evening to present to you the fiscal year 21 work plan. And this is our very first work plan that's wholly wrapped around the Vision 2040 strategic plan. So if you recall, the current year work plan was our transition year. And so we have a foot in kind of each one of those visioning strategic plans for 2030 and 2040 for this current year. And so the work plan that we will be presenting, we'll be talking about tonight and then presenting to council for adoption at the next meeting, is wholly wrapped around all of the work that was done for the Vision 2040 plan. So we're really excited about that. If you recall, we spent a lot of time, both at the council level and at the staff level during this past year, to really make sure that we had clarity around what the community told us that they wanted to see from a vision standpoint for our community through this plan. So you'll notice in the plan itself, there are the new pillars and goals. And you'll notice the icons that are represented in each one of those pillars. And Hannah Cook will be with us later this evening on the next item to provide an overview of some of the marketing and awareness initiatives that they have planned to help our community become more familiar with the plan as well. And those icons are part of that marketing plan. And so we've updated our plan to represent the new pillars and the goals. And the process that we went through to get to this point for a draft work plan was really very similar to what we have done in previous years. So back in January, we had the city council retreat. And at that retreat, we went through a prioritization exercise for each one of those goals that were outlined in the plan. And through that process, we ended up with 11 goals that were prioritized that really rose to the top. and they are represented in this work plan, and they span all 7 of the pillars. So every pillar is represented in this work plan. Staff then took that information from the council retreat, and we met in February and then again in May to develop and then finalize the work plan objectives that are identified within this document that is before you this evening. One thing that I do want to make sure that I point out, Julian, if you can move to the very last slide, please. So we have our foundation, so we have our 7 pillars, and those were generated through the engagement process with our community. And we do have what is kind of what we call our foundation. And so this is the Sustainable Government Foundation. And really, these are the principles that, that staff had presented to the council back in January during the planning retreat that really do form a foundation upon which we then can really implement in a smart way the other components of the strategic plan. And so there are 4 principles that are outlined in the foundation. They're listed here on the screen, and they should look familiar because they are carryovers from the Vision 2030 plan. And we have wrapped some work plan items around those foundational principles. And so that is a new part of what is included as the holistic work plan for our upcoming year. My goal for us tonight is to provide the council with an opportunity to ask any questions about anything you're seeing in the work plan right now. You'll have a couple weeks to let this sit on your brain and marinate a little bit. And we will be bringing this back to council for action at the next regular city council meeting. So at this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions that council may have about anything you're seeing here. As I mentioned, you'll have a couple weeks between now and then. If any other questions pop up subsequent to our meeting this evening, I'll be happy to answer any of those questions as well. So at this point, I'll pause for any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions? The only thing that I might suggest is there's a couple of acronyms that I didn't know what they were. So I don't know if you can do a key, or because I think one of the reasons you use acronyms is because the space is so small. But like EAM platform on this one, and then there's also another one. Like I know Fire Station 4 or Fire Station 1, but somebody who is not a council member may not look at that, may not know what that is. But there was a couple more in there on several pages. So you might just do a key so that if someone is looking at it, they can go, oh, yeah. So what is now that EAM is, I had them circled when I printed them out.
That actually stands for Enterprise Asset Management.
Oh, okay. I know what that is too. Okay.
Yeah, this is a great slide to bring that up because as you're mentioning that, there's probably 5 or 6 acronyms here, so we'll go ahead and make those changes.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things that certain people in the community mention is that we are used to acronyms, and we may be used to acronyms when we are talking about a topic, but then when we are away from that specific topic, you lose it, so you can't even come up with what it is. So, especially for those people who are not staff or council and they decide to look at this, it would be nice to have.
Sure, that's not a problem at all.
Any other questions or comments on all of the different items that are in here? I put it. None? Okay. So I encourage everybody to spend some quality time with this document, and then you, Mike and Tracy, send them questions or comments, and then be ready next meeting, September 22nd. Okay. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you.
Now an update on Vision 2040 marketing and communications plan. And Ms. Cook, hello, hello.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. As Tracy mentioned, I did just want to give you a brief overview tonight of our communications and marketing plan to get the word out to the community about Vision 2040. So Julian, if you'd change the slide, please. So first, I just wanted to give you a brief recap of 2040. Per Council's direction, Council and staff were fairly hands-off during this process. We really wanted this to be a community-driven process. And so the engagement process kicked off in 2018, and we had approximately 2,000 residents participate. Our engagement opportunities included a think tank workshop and then a reconvene a couple months later, multiple workshop sessions that we held every day of the week at multiple various hours throughout the day and at various locations throughout the city so that we could really get as much participation as possible. We offered focus group sessions, and then we also had a community-wide survey. Next slide, please, Julian. The visioning process was intentionally designed to be open, transparent, and inclusive. We really wanted to get a true cross-section of the Coppell community and get their input. So the idea was to engage stakeholders to create a long-term actionable plan that centered around the community's shared vision. Next slide, please. The Vision 2040 plan lays the groundwork for the next 10 to 20 years of investment and focus in the community. So this is a very important initiative that we really want to make sure we educate residents about. We want to make sure that we do a good job of getting the word out about the plan itself, the various pillars and the different components, and all of the work that goes into that and will go into that in the future into informing the city decision-making. We want to make sure that we get all of that information in front of residents and that they're very knowledgeable about the plan. Next slide, please. And so the first component of the marketing plan that most residents will see is the graphic components. And so with that, I wanted to unveil our Vision 2040 logo. And then as part of the plan, we also have 7 pillars, as Tracy kind of alluded to. I am a little bit bummed that she had these pillars in her slide, so you got to see them a little early. But next slide, please, Julian. So these are our 7 graphic pillars. And so these are the key icons that residents will associate with each pillar. And these will be a major component of the graphics of all of our Vision 2040 pieces. And then at the foundation of all of these pillars, again, as Tracy alluded to, is the sustainable government. Julian, next slide, please. So now that we have, now that you've seen all of the graphic components of the plan, how do we plan to get the word out? Julian, next slide. What do we plan to do to make sure that residents get all of this information and are able to understand it and digest it and really get a good idea of what the city plans to do with this information? Next slide. Our key objectives for our marketing plan are to educate residents and businesses about the pillars and the underlying goals. Because the city plans to use this plan to inform decision-making over the next decade, it is really important that residents know all of the components of it. And we also want to educate residents about the city's purpose for completing the visioning process, as well as explain the value of long-term strategic planning. We want to make sure that residents understand why we do projects like this every 10 years, why we take on strategic planning initiatives every decade. We want to make sure that residents understand the value that it brings to them. And then finally, we want to encourage just civic engagement and participation in general. We're always looking for ways to get residents more involved and to let them know how they can engage with the city. Next slide, please. So to achieve all of these goals, we will be using a multitude of tools, including our website. This campaign will also have a pretty heavy social media component. We'll be placing advertisements. We'll work with CISD to make sure that some of our Vision 2040 information is included in some of their marketing materials. We have had information in our Coppell e-newsletter, and we will continue to place information there as well. We'll use our Coppell newsletter, or Coppell News, which is our monthly water bill newsletter that's mailed out to all of our utility customers. We'll be using some printed material, some direct mail, a little bit of video, and then some graphic collateral. Next slide, please. So for the website, this webpage is published. It is live for everybody to go take a look at. The webpage is coppelltx.gov/2040. And this is really the main information hub for all of our marketing. All of our marketing pieces will draw people back to the website to get more information. And so on the website, you can find information about our previous visioning initiatives. So there is a link to 2030 to get more information about that. It details the engagement process that we went through and lists out all of the different components that went into that process. Each pillar has its own page that lists out a description of the pillar and then the various objectives underneath it. And then from the website, you can also access the project portal, which contains all of the data that we collected throughout the engagement process. So residents can still go in and play around with that data. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, we will have a pretty heavy social media component in this plan. So we will be using all of the city's social media accounts, including Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Nextdoor, Instagram, and Twitter. So on social media, we will focus on one pillar each week. So we'll take the full pillar information, or the full information about the 7 pillars, and break that down into more digestible chunks. So we'll do descriptions of the pillars and the underlying goals, and then we'll also do some posts that talk about any actions that have already come out of 2040. So for example, the creation of the Smart Board and the Ford Board. And then into all of our social media posts, we'll also weave a call to action. We always want to make sure that residents know that there's something that they can do, steps they can take to get involved and participate. Next slide, please. We will also be placing some advertisements. So we plan to do a mixture of digital and print placements in our local newspapers, including the Rambler, the Coppell Gazette, and Community Impact. We place advertisements on shopping carts at Kroger and Tom Thumb. We have an art change coming up in just a few weeks, so we're getting ready to swap out that artwork to promote Vision 2040. And then we also place advertisements in some of the CISD marketing materials. So we place ads in their e-newsletter and in some of their various publications. So we will be allocating some of that advertising space to Vision 2040. Next slide, please. Our Coppell e-news. This is our newsletter that goes out every Thursday afternoon, and hopefully all of you are subscribers. And hopefully you've noticed over the last couple of weeks that we have had a slight artwork change to our e-news header. We did go ahead and include the Vision 2040 logo on that header, so that artwork change has been made. And then similar to social media, we're planning on doing a series of smaller articles in e-news each week. We have run an article introducing the pillars already, and so from there, we'll break it down into smaller chunks, weaving in information for how residents can get involved, and educating residents about all the various pillars and their components. And then at the end of that, we will run another article just reinforcing the importance of future planning to make sure that everyone understands why we take on projects like this and the value that strategic planning adds to the city. Next slide, please. And then just some miscellaneous marketing materials. Our Coppell News, which is our water bill newsletter, we did run an article introducing all of the pillars in that, and we will continue to place Vision 20 information in the newsletter going forward. We are currently working on some printed material in a summary book. This booklet takes all of the information from the full plan and boils it down into a 12 to 16 page document that we will have printed and we will have available in a digital format on the website. Our hope for this book is that we'll be able to partner with some of our local businesses and our business community to help get this distributed throughout the city. We also are planning to do a direct mail postcard to all of our residents, just introducing the pillars and getting them familiar with the Vision 2040 name. We're working on a video, and then we also have just some various graphic collateral pieces. So for example, the handout that goes in the council chamber dais will be updated. And we're also working on updating the graphics in the chambers themselves. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Hannah. Wes.
It's hard to unmute while you have your hand raised. Sorry about that. Hey, Hannah, I really like the way that the website looks. It's, it's got the color, it's got the flash. It really catches your attention. So thank you very much for taking that on and doing that. Could you kind of explain from a 2040 programmatic standpoint how we took what we learned, lessons learned on the publication or the publicity for the 2040 plan and how you've applied that to the rollout?
I'm sorry, for the 2030 plan, what we learned in the 2030 2040.
When we were kicking off the 2040 plan, we had a lot of the same discussion about how to promote it, how to publicize it. So what takeaways did you take from that you've applied to the implementation phase?
Yeah, so we definitely did learn a lot of things, trying to get the larger engagement from the community, knowing that we have a group of residents that follows all of our social media, and so sometimes it is harder to get that message out to the larger group. So as part of this plan, we will be adding some other avenues that we didn't necessarily put information on at the beginning of the process. So next door in particular has become something that is really, really important to getting good information out. So that's something that we'll be leaning more heavily on. And we are also just exploring other options and different ways that we can engage the community to help them create content to get our message out, or to create influencers in the community to use word of mouth and create excitement about the plan or about the information, and help use them to help push that message out further.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
Bijou.
Thank you, Mayor. Hannah, I like the way it's designed. Looks nice. You guys doing a great job. One of the things came to my mind is we have 70 plus HOA in Coppell, and many of the HOA send flyers out monthly or weekly, monthly or quarterly. So if we can send or reach out to those HOAs presidents and include this information in their newsletter, would be also a way to get to our residents this information.
Yes, that is a great idea.
So that's just a suggestion from my side. That's all. Thank you.
Great idea. Anyone else? Did you get, did you get all of the council participation that you were looking for the video?
That I am actually not sure of yet. So we are dividing and conquering on the video.
Okay.
And Tracy just popped up, so.
Yep. Yes, Mayor, I can answer that. We are missing a few photos from council, and my plan was to follow up individually with those members this week.
Okay, perfect. I didn't remember what the timeline of that was.
Well, thank you for giving everyone their reminder.
Yeah. I'm sure that there are people here who have already done that.
And maybe not.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Hannah, for all that you do. This is it. Getting people to understand why we do what we do is very important. So thank you for taking that on, because just getting them to listen is the hard part.
Well, I think it's the most fun thing in the world. So my pleasure. And
There
thank
you
you so
go.
much for having me tonight.
Thank you. Okay, item D, discussion regarding license agreement with George Coffee. And Miss Mindy, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to talk about this item. Next slide, Julian. We are here tonight to talk about a license agreement between the City of Coppell and George Coffee and Provisions. The item is on your consent agenda tonight, so I wanted to explain it to you all in work session. And essentially, since COVID-19, George has not reopened their store. They had concerns about the safety and health of their employees and guests, so they just decided it was not time for them to open their store yet. But they did have a lot of patrons that were requesting to still receive their products. So George decided that the best thing would be for them to purchase a mobile vending unit, which is a Shasta trailer that they have converted into basically a coffee bar. And so they've been operating that mobile vending unit on Saturdays at the Coppell Farmers Market. And they've done had such a great response to that they're asking us if they could operate at that same location Monday through Friday. Next slide, please, Julian. So this is a site plan to show you where they're looking to locate. The red triangle at the top of the screen is the trailer that is located on the west side of the Old Town Pavilion. So if that helps give you kind of reference. Is basically where they're operating on Saturdays right now, but this is where they're requesting that they to be located during the week. Next slide, please. And they're requesting to be there because they feel like that is a great access for those that are visiting the park, enjoying the open space, that it gives them great access to that Shasta trailer at that location. So they are requesting to operate Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. They believe they'll start in the beginning on Tuesday through Friday from 8 to 5, but they wanted those extended hours just in case they want to include Mondays and start a little bit earlier. And so this license agreement is required due to the fact that they'll be located on public property. And if you all approve it tonight, it will allow George to operate at this location for 60 days. They'll also continue operating at the farmers market on Saturdays. Next slide, please. And then I included some pictures just so you could see what that Shasta trailer looks like. So this is their mobile vending unit, and they have a sign that they set up alongside it. So like I said, it's been wildly popular so far. And Christian was unable to join us tonight. He had a prior commitment, so he wasn't able to join us. But I would be happy to answer any questions I can. So with that, I'm open to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mindy. Any questions? Wes?
Mindy, what other than the fact that they believe that people will be interested in going there because they're going to go to the park area, did they consider doing this in their own parking area or their own lot?
They did. They actually originally talked about using some of the parking spaces in front of their store, but with Tangerine Salon opening soon, they felt like this would be a great opportunity to capitalize on the customers going to Tangerine Salon, but also those they've watched and they see that there's a lot of people out at the park right now, and so they felt like it would be a better location for them to be able to be at the park or to come from Tangerine and come get their products at the trailer.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Bijou?
Yeah, Mindy, I saw the pictures. I just wanted to make sure, is anybody inside that trailer or just...
Self-serve.
Yes, sir. No, there is someone inside the trailer when it's operating.
The vending machine automatic. Okay. Okay.
So is it, he's basically doing the coffees and teas that he was doing inside? That's
correct. The only thing he is not offering, from what I understand, is alcohol and food. So otherwise, all other beverages are available. They've tried doing a online ordering system so that way people order in advance and then they can just walk up when their number's called. But I think at the farmers market, they decided that they would take some orders on site as well. But they said it's been really successful and it's gone really smoothly at the farmers market so far. So they're hoping for that same success during the week.
And that's primarily because of all of the restrictions on their interior building. They can't make money opening it up.
And they have a little bit of concern about the safety of opening it up and bringing people inside. So they just feel like this is a safer and more responsible way to deliver their product.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
I think it works out well, and I think it's really creative, and it keeps them engaged in the community, and for the community to just know that we haven't lost them and they're still around.
So are they going to put some kind of signage at their location so that people know where to go?
I believe they will. I think they're also going to be advertising it online. They've already done a big social media push for the Saturdays at the farmers market, so they'll continue to do that. And I believe they are going to put a sign on site to encourage people to come over to the park to get their products. So,
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay. Item E, discussion regarding appointments to the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Mayor. So, we've received our official ballot for the election of the trustees for TML IRP, and I know that's intergovernmental risk pool. I've attached that to the packet as well, and we've only received one letter. Normally we get an influx of those letters when this time comes around, but we've only received one, and they were attached in the packet. And for reference, in 2018, I believe council denied a motion to approve anybody on the ballot. So,
well, I know that historically sometimes we don't know any of the people, so it's been difficult. In this case, I know two. I think I know two. The guy who sent the email or the letter, Jeffrey Snyder, and Robert Hawk, who is place 4, who is council member. No, he's city manager at Tomball. You should know him.
I met them both, but that doesn't mean I know.
Yeah. So does anybody have a huge desire to pick and choose? I mean, I think I could fill out the ballot, but I don't want to take since I've been a little bit more involved, I have met some of these people.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So I read through all of their bios, and I honestly didn't know a single one of them. So I'll defer to you.
Mr. Mark.
Mayor, I trust your judgment, and you know some of these people. And if you think we should give them support, then let's do it.
Okay, I will.
I trust you too.
I will run through these, and then when it comes time, I will read them in, or you can read them in, one or the other. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other discussions that we need to have before the general meeting? You got a little bit of a break. We'll see you back at 7:30. It is 6:51. 41. Having a tough time with time today. trustee. He can teach me.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Okay, everyone, it is 7:30, so we are ready to start the regular session of the Coppell City Council. Today is Tuesday, September 8th. I almost said 28th and got rid of a whole nother month, sorry. We have on the screen, we have our agenda. And first on the list is our invocation, and Councilmember Wes Mays will be helping us with the invocation. And then we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Mays.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, you are our Lord and Savior. Mold us to your heart. In these uncertain times, we look to you. We look to you to keep us safe. We look to you to protect us from evil. We look to you to show us your path. Teach us to look to you for guidance and answers. You honor those who fear you. You honor those who keep a promise. You honor those who help the needy and do not expect anything in return. You honor those who do not take advantage of those that are less fortunate. Help us to be worthy of your trust so that we may be an instrument of peace and hope for everyone. Through the love of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do we have anyone for citizens' appearance?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So that was item 6. Item 7 is consider approval of a proclamation designating September 22nd, 2020 as National Voter Registration Day and authorizing the mayor to sign. Miss Ashley, do you want to tell us anything about this?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So National Voter Registration Day is September 22nd, and we are having a voter registration push on September 12th out at the library, but it's going to be a virtual event that will have the League of Women Voters and Ms. Crystal Patinos present in order to discuss voting, all the questions that people might have, and any other voting-related issues that you might come upon in this new age that we're in. So, and also, October 5th is the last day to register to vote in order for voting in November 3rd election. So, just an FYI.
Thank you very much. So, Council, please consider this proclamation. Whereas the City of Coppell is committed to encouraging broad voter registration, access, and citizen participation in elections among voting eligible citizens. Whereas it is known that many Americans are not able to vote because they missed registration deadlines, do not update their registration information, or are unfamiliar with how to register. And whereas the City of Coppell recognizes the challenge that the coronavirus pandemic has posed to many Americans' ability to register to vote. Whereas Coppell calls on its diverse partners, such as nonprofits, the William T. Cosberry Library, the businesses, neighborhood colleges, universities, and more to assist the community by registering citizens to vote. Whereas the need for more reliable, trusted public information and education on voter registration is critical to Americans' active participation in the election and integrity of the electoral process. Now, therefore, I, Karen Hunt, the mayor of the City of Coppell, do hereby proclaim September 22nd, 2020 as National Voter Registration Day, and commits to joining the national efforts to support voter registration and citizen participation in elections here in Coppell. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Coppell to be affixed this 8th day of September 2020. Council, Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the proclamation designating September 22nd, 2020 as National Voter Registration Day and authorizing the mayor to sign.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Long. All in favor?
Long, Hinosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Today we have items A through E. These items are typically enacted in one motion. They are items that have either been previously approved by council or have been approved through the budget process. Are there any items that council would like to discuss or hear additional information on? Hearing none. Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve consent agenda items 8A through E.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Councilmember Mays. All in favor?
Long, Hinosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, today we have a couple of public hearings, and these public hearings are very much related. They have to do with setting the tax rates and proposed rates, and listening to public comment on the budget and for the municipal budget and the Coppell Crime and Control and Prevention District. So we are going to open each of these public hearings, and then we will receive comment. Item 9 is I would open the public hearing to receive public comment on the proposed 2020-21 budget for the Coppell Crime Control and Prevention District. This notice was published 10 days in advance with social media blasts and e-news. Item 10, I would open the public hearing to receive public comment concerning the proposed 2021 tax rate of 58 cents even. Again, here, the notice was published 10 days in advance with social media blasts and e-news. And then item 11, to receive I'll open the public hearing to receive comment concerning the proposed 2021 municipal budget. This too, the notice was published 10 days in advance and with social media blasts and e-news. One thing I would like to let everybody know is in this new environment, this is all virtual, so as indicated, we did post that this is a public hearing, and this is for people to come in and tell us what they want us to look at or make comments about the budget. There will be a public hearing or an additional meeting to approve the budget and the tax rate on September 15th at 6 p.m. Council members will be following the social distancing protocols and conferencing remotely to the meeting. You can watch the live stream at your leisure at coppelltx.gov. If you wish to make a comment, just like this meeting, if you wish to make a comment for the public record, you should email them to the city secretary at citysec@coppelltx.gov by 2 p.m. on September 15th. We have received several comments via email, and we have also had a couple of people indicated they would like to join us virtually. But first, we have Kimberly Tian here to give us a little bit of information about these 3 items. Welcome. How are you doing?
Fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening, I will provide information on the Crime Control and Prevention District, the proposed budget, and the proposed tax rate. I will begin with the Crime Control District. As required by Chapter 363 of the Local Government Code, the governing body that created the Crime Control and Prevention District shall hold a public hearing on the budget adopted by the Crime Control Board. The board held a public hearing on May 26th of 2020. No citizens signed up to speak. The public hearing was closed, and the board did approve the proposed budget. Before I present the Crime Control District budget, I would like to provide some history and background on the Crime Control District. First, it receives revenue from the 0.25% sales tax. The election of the sales tax originally passed in November of 2007, and the district began collecting taxes in 2008. The initial time period was for 5 years, which would have expired in April 2013. But in November of 2011, the sales tax was reauthorized for a 10-year period with a new expiration date of April of 2023. The district does fund the School Resource Officer Program, community and police cooperation programs such as National Night Out, the Women's Self-Defense classes, and the Citizens Police Academy. It also funds the North Texas Emergency Communication Center, which is our dispatch, and the Police Patrol Prevention Program. Slide, please. The total Crime Control and Prevention District revenues are projected to be $3,756,625 for the next fiscal year. Sales tax is the primary source of revenue for this fund and is estimated to be $3,324,750 or $59 or 88.5%, $50 of the total revenues. As I said at the beginning, sales tax is the quarter of a percent that is allocated to the district. The proposed sales tax revenue does reflect a 45% decrease from the current year budgeted sales tax revenue. Although, and this is due to the change in Rule 3.334. Although that rule is not in effect until October of 2021, the estimated impact of the rule has been included in the proposed budget. The reason we incorporated the rule change now is because companies may elect to implement the new rule prior to the comptroller's effective date. And historically, the district receives approximately 60% of sales tax collections from non-traditional retail, the business-to-business type sales. So if they choose to early implement, there could be a reduction in sales tax. And once the rule does go into effect, the percent of sales tax received from non-traditional retail source is expected to decline. Remaining revenue is salary reimbursement of $331,875 or 8.8% of the revenue budget, which will be received from the Coppell Independent School District for the school resource officers. And interest earnings estimated at $100,000 or 2.7% of the proposed revenue. The total Crime Control and Prevention District expenditures are projected to be $4,054,317 for the next fiscal year. Salary and benefits are $1,839,349 or 45.37% of the budgeted expenditures. The Crime Control District has 19 authorized positions. Those positions support the School Resource Officer Program and the Neighborhood Community Policing Program. There were no additional positions added for the upcoming fiscal year, and no salary increases for staff are included in the proposed budget. In addition, 5 of the 19 authorized positions are vacant. The vacant positions remain authorized, but there is no funding provided in the 2020-2021 budget to fill those positions. Next, supplies are approximately $9,000 or 0.22% of the budget. Services totals $1,591,310 or 39.25% of the budget. This does include the payment to the North Texas Emergency Communication Center for dispatch services. This is the joint venture that the city has with Carrollton, Farmers Branch, Addison. It also includes in the services category is the contract with the city of Carrollton for the jail service. Capital outlay is budgeted at approximately $25,000 or 0.62% for the fiscal year. The amount is for the technology refresh related to the automated license plate reader cameras. The proposed budget does also include a transfer of $589,658 or 14.54% of the expenditures. This transfer is to the capital replacement fund to continue funding the vehicle replacement program for 18 police vehicles. This program did fully fund the current year replacement of the police fleet. In summary, as presented, the revenues for the fiscal year 2021 are estimated to be $3,756,625, and the expenditures are $4,054,317. This is an overview of the Crime Control and Prevention District budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021. And this agenda item is the public hearing on the 2020-2021 proposed budget for the Crime Control and Prevention District, which the governing body that created the district is required by Chapter 363 of the Local Government Code to hold. The actual adoption of this budget will occur with the adoption of the entire city budget scheduled for your consideration of approval at the special council meeting on September 15th of 2020. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on the Crime Control and Prevention District proposed budget.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Kimberly Tien, can you explain to the viewing public in regards to the school reimbursement officers this year is different than last year?
I believe Chief Barton is on the phone, on the Zoom also. I know that he did some negotiation with the school superintendent and redid the contract that we had with the school district and requested that the school district assist with paying for the school resource officers.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Barton, is there anything I left out?
No, that was it. I guess a little bit to add to that is we had never done this in the history of the PD. It was a very unique arrangement we had with the school district where we funded the full program. And again, that's not normal. It's not typical between school districts and police departments. But this will be the first year that we begin to split those costs.
Thank you. You want to go ahead to the next one, please?
Yes. Next slide, please. As part of the budget process, a public hearing is to be conducted by the City Council to receive public input concerning the proposed 2020-2021 municipal budget. As part of the public hearing, I'll give you a brief overview of what is included in the proposed budget. Before I present the proposed budget, I would like to take a moment to explain the budget process. The budget process began in early February with the department directors and their staff developing their budgets. Their proposed budgets were submitted to the finance department in mid-March, and departmental budget reviews with the city manager's office were held in April. A virtual town hall meeting to obtain public input was also held in April. And then over the summer months, there were 4 budget workshops with council, and the proposed budget was filed with the city secretary's office on August 5th of 2020. Tonight, the public hearing on the proposed budget is being held, and the adoption of the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget is scheduled for a special council meeting on September 15th of 2020. Next slide, please. Total general fund revenues are projected to be approximately $64.1 million for the next fiscal year. This slide shows the revenues are derived from 8 different categories. First is property taxes. It is the primary revenue source of the general fund. Property taxes total $40.4 million, or approximately 63% of total general fund revenues. Proposed property tax revenue is based on a property tax rate that is less than the no new revenue rate and less than the voter approved rate established by Senate Bill 2. The next revenue category is sales tax. Sales tax is estimated at $10.9 million, or about 17% of total proposed general fund revenues. This is an unpredictable revenue stream, and we do try to remain optimistic but conservative when budgeting for this source of revenue. In addition to being unpredictable, it is anticipated that some businesses may early implement the change to the Rule 3.334, so the proposed budget does include a 45% decrease from the current year budgeted sales tax amount. The change in the Rule 3.334 will shift sales tax sourcing from the current method, which is sales taxes paid to the location where the sale is fulfilled, referred to as origination sourcing, to sales taxes paid to where the sale is delivered, referred to as destination sourcing. And this is for internet sales. Currently, about 60% of the sales tax collected are provided by non-traditional retail, the business-to-business type sales, which typically place orders via the internet. As you can see from this graph, the majority of revenues received by the general fund is from property tax and sales tax. These two revenue categories account for 80% of the general fund revenues. However, the change to Rule 3.334 is pushing property tax as a percentage of total revenue up and sales tax as a percentage of total revenue down by 10% when compared to prior year. The next category is franchise tax. It's estimated at almost $3.5 million, which equates to about 5% of revenues for the general fund. These are amounts that are paid by businesses to the city for use of the city's streets and right-of-ways. Legislative changes passed in 2019 did negatively impact the amount of franchise fees paid by companies who provide both cable and telephone services. They are now only required to remit franchise tax on the higher of the two. Therefore, the franchise tax revenue decreased in the current year budget continues in the 2020-2021 proposed budget. The next category is licenses and permits. They're estimated about $918,000, or about 1.4% of the total revenues. This is $297,000 less than the current year budget. An estimated decrease in building permit revenue is included in the proposed budget. The estimated decrease is based on the negative impact of the COVID pandemic on the economy. Court fines are proposed budget is $1.1 million, or about 1.7% of the proposed general fund budget. Charges for services, which is the last category, charges for services and the last category, other revenue, account for 7.9% of total general fund revenue and consist of those revenues that do not fit into another major category. This would include ambulance services, fees charged by Parks and Recreation Department for various rec programs and services that they provide, E911 fees, miscellaneous collections, interest earnings, and any type of reimbursement other than the reimbursement from the Water and Sewer Fund. In total, these two revenue categories are projected to be almost $2 million less than the current year budget. Specifically, the COVID pandemic is expected to continue to have a negative impact on revenue from the traditional programs and special events provided by the Parks and Rec Department. Revenues for those sources are projected lower than in the previous years and are not expected to rebound until the public feels safe participating in those activities. In addition, the transfer from CRDC is also expected to be lower because the transfer is based on a % of sales tax received by the Coppell Recreation Development Corp. Since the impact of the change in Rule 3.334 is a 45% decrease in sales tax revenue, the transfer, which is based on sales tax, is also projected to decrease. And the last reimbursement category for revenue is the water sewer reimbursement. It is an administrative charge to the Water and Sewer Fund for services such as personnel time, computer usage, or legal services that are paid for and provided by the general fund. This amount was increased from $1.8 million in the current year budget to $2.2 million in the proposed budget. The increase is based on a cost of service study, and you will see a corresponding increase in expenses of the Water and Sewer Fund. Next slide, please. Next is the general fund expenditures. Total general fund expenditures are approximately $64.1 million for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. This is a decrease of almost $7.8 million, or about 11%. And to explain the decreases, I'll go over each expenditure classification shown on this slide. I'll begin with salaries and benefits, which are proposed budget of $42.3 million, or almost 66% of the budgeted expenditures. The city is a service organization, which results in the largest part of the cost being associated with personnel. Salary and benefits are about $2.2 million, or 5% less than prior year. The decrease is attributed to currently vacant positions that are frozen and budgeted at $0. The proposed budget also includes a reduction in seasonal employees. There are no salary increases for staff and no new positions in the proposed budget. Next, supplies are approximately $2.1 million, or 3% of the budget. Supplies are down 9% from the prior year. One reason for the decrease in supplies is a shift from the just-in-time inventory, or a shift to the just-in-time inventory philosophy, which is a shift in purchasing practices. In addition, parks operations reduced the budget for chemicals, botanical items, and tools and equipment. This reduction will be accomplished by revising their planting schedule, as well as the frequency and methods used to maintain the city's green space. Maintenance types expenditures account for 4.45% of the budget at $2.8 million. Maintenance is down by 13% from prior year. The decrease in this line item can be attributed to a decrease in building maintenance. The decrease is the result of Town Center receiving the new HVAC system this year, so maintenance costs attributed to the HVAC system was reduced. The traffic division also decreased sign and signal maintenance based on the idea that various street improvements mean that the sign and signals for those streets will not need as much maintenance. The parks and operations decreased ground maintenance. The reduction includes a decrease in the mowing contract, which is the result of a reduction in the mowing frequency. A decrease for parks and athletic fields maintenance is also included in the budget, which is accomplished through the reduction in the frequency of maintenance of those areas. The next category is services, which totals almost $12.5 million, or about 19.4% of the budget. This category includes items such as professional services contracts, telephone services, electricity and other utility services, printing, legal, insurance, audit costs, publications, and advertising. The proposed budget also includes a second debt payment for the Beltline Road, which totals $1,165,416. The proposed budget for the expenditure category is down 6%. However, if the Beltline debt payment was not included, this expenditure category would be down 15%. The areas that were decreased here are training, printing, advertising, and special events. Next is capital outlay. It's budgeted at approximately $924,000, or almost 1.4% of the total expenditure budget. This expenditure category is down 77%, or $3.2 million. And the primary decrease for this is because the 2020 budget included almost $2.9 million for 3 fire trucks. Capital items included in the proposed budget are money for the phone system upgrade, server improvements, and the annual replacement of fitness equipment at the core, as well as library media. And the last category is the transfers category, and it is $3.5 million, or about 5.5% of the general fund expenditures. This is about $1 million less than the current year budget. The transfers include $926,781 to the capital replacement fund, $300,000 to the cemetery, and $2.1 million to the infrastructure maintenance fund. The $2.1 million, $758,000 of that will be used by facilities for maintenance of the city facilities. $1,196,000 will be used for street maintenance, which includes maintenance of the streets, alleys, and sidewalks, and $190,000 for maintenance related to the traffic controls. Next slide, please. I just presented expenditures by classification, and now this slide shows expenditures by function. Public safety is the first function shown, and it represents 40.8, or almost 26.2 million of the total general fund expenditures. Public safety includes police, fire, emergency management, building inspections, environmental health, municipal court, and animal services. Next is the public works, which includes engineering, streets and traffic control, the planning division, facilities management, and the fleet services. The expenditures of the public works function is approximately 10 million, or 15.7% of the total general fund expenditures. The third function is culture and rec, and this is where library and parks and recreation departments are budgeted. This function accounts for 18.3%, or $11.7 million. The final area is general government, which includes the city administrative departments. This area represents 16.2 million, or 25.3% of the general fund expenditures. And again, this is the division that includes the $1,165,416 for the second belt line payment. Next slide, please. Debt service fund is used to account for the principal and interest of outstanding debt. This fund derives its revenue from property taxes. Property tax revenue anticipated for this is $8,320,272, and interest earnings of $40,000. Expenditures of this fund are for interest paid on the debt, the principal payments, and the agency fees. Bond principal payments will be $6,155,000, and the interest paid on the debt will be $2,674,805, with agency fees budgeted at $10,000. The debt repayment is fairly rapid, with about 69% being retired over the next 10 years and 89% in 15 years. These percentages would decrease if we issue additional bonds during the 2021 fiscal year. Next slide, please. So what projects are being paid with debt service? Primarily, bonds are issued for street and drainage projects. Bonds were issued to purchase the property at Cypress Waters, which was approved by the voters to purchase land at that location to reduce population density that would have impacted the number of students served by the school district. About 2 cents on the debt portion of the property tax rate is used to repay bonds issued to buy the property at Cypress Waters. Bonds have also been issued for various city facilities. As previously mentioned, 89% of the bonds currently outstanding will be repaid in 15 years, and all of the current bonds outstanding will be paid in 2040. Next slide, please. The city has 17 funds that are classified as special revenue funds and 2 funds that are classified as internal service fund. Each special revenue fund has a dedicated revenue source, and the expenditures are restricted to a specific purpose. The revenue source of the first 6 shown in the first column on this slide are from fines and forfeitures, for example, traffic tickets. The last fund, the red light enforcement fund, was used to record revenues from the red light camera violations. The city no longer has red light cameras, so the red light enforcement fund no longer has a revenue source. The fund balance of this fund is being used to pay for the purchase of the Axon cameras used by the police department. So as soon as that program is complete, those funds will go away, and that fund will not be here. The next column, hotel occupancy tax, is the first item shown in the second column. It receives revenue from the occupancy tax remitted by hotels located in the city, as well as occupancy tax remitted by short-term rentals. The remaining 6 funds shown in the second column receive revenue from various sources. For example, the donation special revenue fund is where we record donations from individuals or businesses who have specified how they'd like their donation to be used. The drainage utility district revenue is from the stormwater fee on the utility bill, the water bill. And then Rolling Oaks Memorial Cemetery revenue source is from the those who purchase burial rights and services from the cemetery. So these 14 revenue funds do not receive any funding from property tax or sales tax. The last 3 funds shown in the first column, the Crime Prevention District, the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, and the Coppell Recreation Development Corporation are funded with sales tax, but not with property tax. Specifically, the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund receives 0.25% sales tax for street maintenance. The Crime Prevention District Fund receives 0.25% sales tax that is used for crime prevention programs. And the Coppell Recreational Development Corp receives 0.5% of sales tax for projects that qualify for 4B legislation. The CRDC debt payments are also paid with the 0.5% sales tax, 0.5% sales tax collected to repay the principal and interest on those bonds. The remaining 2 funds are the internal service funds. The city's internal service funds are the self-funded health fund and the capital replacement fund, and these funds are used to account for the cost of goods or services provided by these funds to other funds or departments in the city. Next slide, please. The Water and Sewer Fund is classified as an enterprise fund, and enterprise funds are used when the intent is to recover the cost of providing goods or services through user fees and charges. The water and sewer revenues for the proposed budget are estimated to be $19.7 million. The major source of revenue is the sale of water. The city receives 61.3% of the budget, or about $12.1 million, from this revenue source. The next largest revenue source of the Water and Sewer Fund is from sewer sales. This fund receives 36.2 or $7.1 million from this source. The water sales plus sewer sales equals 97.5%, or approximately $19.2 million of the $19.7 million projected revenues for this fund. The remaining 2.5%, or $481,100 in revenue, is from interest income, impact fees, and other revenues. Next slide, please. The proposed expenses for the Water and Sewer Fund total $18.3 million. The first division is the cost of water division, which is the cost center used for purchasing wholesale water from the Dallas Water Utilities. This is the largest cost center, making up 36%, or $6.6 million. The next division is the cost of sewer. It is used to pay Trinity River Authority for sewer treatment services provided to the city, and the cost center is almost 24%, or $4.4 million. These two cost centers do make up 60% of the expenses of the water and sewer fund, and these expenses are not controlled by the city. They are costs that are passed on to the city from Dallas Water Utilities and the Trinity River Authority. The next division is debt service. Since the water and sewer fund is operated like a private business, principal and interest payments on the bonds issued for water sewer projects are budgeted in the fund as opposed in a different fund like general obligation bonds. The principal and interest due in fiscal year 2020-2021 will be approximately $1.7 million and represents 9% of the fund's expenses. The water sewer fund did issue $11.9 million in bonds in July of 2018. Those bonds were issued for the advanced water meter project, for some inflow and infiltration projects, and for water tower rehab. This current fiscal year, $12.5 million was issued in bonds, and those bonds were issued to fund the Sandy Lake lift station rehabilitation, the water redundancy project, and a generator for Village Parkway pump station. Prior to the bonds being issued in 2018, 1999 was the last time bonds were issued to fund water sewer projects. These bonds, those bonds were issued to do the DeForest lift station expansion. 52% of the bonds that are currently outstanding will be repaid in 10 years, and 79% of the current bonds outstanding will be repaid in 15 years. Current bonds are outstanding will be repaid in 2040. Next is the combined services. This cost center is almost 14%, or $2.5 million of the water sewer fund total expenses. This department includes items such as general property and liability insurance, unemployment claims, and the reimbursement to the general fund for the services provided by the general fund to the water sewer fund. So that's the $2.2 million that I mentioned earlier. And again, it was an increase of $400,000 in costs. Next is utility operations, and this is the division responsible for field operation activities, and it represents $2.4 million, or about 13% of total water sewer fund expenses. And the last division is the utility billing division. This division is responsible for the billing and collections and customer service activities. It makes up 4%, or almost $764,000 of the total fund expenses. Next slide, please. This slide shows expenses by classification. About 87%, or $15.9 million of the water sewer fund expenses are classified as service type expenses. This includes items such as the purchase of water from Dallas Water Utilities, the sewer treatment services provided by Trinity River Authority, and the annual debt service payments provided on the outstanding bonds, and the reimbursement to the paid to the general fund. Moving clockwise, I'm going to skip to the third box, which is salaries and benefits. This makes up 9.4%, or about $1.7 million of the water fund's total expenses. There are currently 21.5 authorized positions in this fund, and there is one vacant position. The vacant position is still authorized, but budgeted at $0. Right above the salary and benefits is the transfer, which makes up less than 1% of the budget. And this is the transfer to the capital replacement fund for future acquisitions of replacement vehicles, machinery, and equipment. The remaining categories make up 2.8% of the expenses. Those are made up of supplies, maintenance, and capital. This year, the only capital expenditure budgeted in the water and sewer fund is $10,000, and that's for water meters that the city will purchase for new development. These meters are then sold to builders, and a corresponding revenue recognition would occur. Next slide, please. In summary, the proposed budget does include the anticipated revenues and expenditures for not only the general fund, but all funds of the city. The total impact on fund balance of all funds of the city is an increase of about $3.4 million. The fund balance of the general fund is expected to increase by about $5,000, and the debt service fund balance is expected to decrease by $479,533. The fund balance of the special revenue funds and the proprietary funds are expected to increase by about $3.9 million. And this concludes the presentation on the proposed budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I know we've heard this before, and we appreciate the presentation. Are there any questions? I'm going to turn it over for the public hearing. Oh, yeah, tax rate is first, sorry.
The tax rate.
Sorry. Tax rate is first.
Yes. So pursuant to section 26.05D of the Texas Property Tax Code, the governing body of a taxing unit other than a school district may not adopt a tax rate that exceeds the lower of the voter approval tax rate or the no new revenue tax rate calculated as provided by the chapter by this chapter until the governing body has held a public hearing on the proposed tax rate and has otherwise complied with section 26.06 and section 26.06. So although a public hearing is not required because the proposed tax rate of 0.58 cents is lower than both the no new revenue rate of 0.637729 and the voter approved rate of 0.659322, the city did opt to hold a public hearing to receive public input on the proposed tax rate. Next slide, please. First, the property tax rate is divided into two parts shown on this slide. The green section is the maintenance and operations, and this portion of the tax rate is used to fund the operations of the city. The blue portion of the graph is the interest in sinking, and this portion is used to pay the debt incurred by for the debt incurred by the city. The proposed tax rate for the fiscal year 2020-2021 is 0.58, with 0.481178 or 82.96 being used to fund operations and 0.098822 or 17.04% for debt service. This is a decrease of 0.004 from the fiscal year 2019-2020 tax rate. The value of 1 penny on the tax rate is approximately $838,910, which is based on the city's total taxable valuation of $8,389,096,043, which is 4.27% higher than last fiscal year. The 4.27% or $343,679,204 increase in taxable assessed valuation is the result of an average of 3.29% increase in residential property values, a 3.57 average increase in commercial property values, and an 8.94% average increase in business personal property values. Included in these increases is the addition of new property, which totaled $305 million approximately. The current breakdown of the total taxable value of property in Coppell is about 57% is residential and 43% is business commercial. This breakdown is consistent with last year. In 2019, the breakdown was 58.6% residential and 41.4% business commercial. In the mid-90s, the breakdown was approximately 80% residential and 20% commercial. So the trend was growing a commercial base. The proposed tax rate of 0.58 does raise $1,224,170 more in revenue from property taxes. Of this amount, $1,770,733 is from new property. However, the overall proposed general fund revenues are projected to be $8.9 million less than the current year budgeted revenues, and that's primarily because sales tax revenue is expected to decrease by 45% due to the change in the Rule 3.334. Next slide, please. What is the impact of the tax rate on a homeowner? This first section shows that the average home value in Coppell is $400,343. This is a 3.7% increase in value over the prior year. Values are established by both Dallas and Denton central appraisal districts, and the city has no involvement in establishing property values. There is specific legislation that the appraisal district must follow when establishing taxable property values. The next section on this slide is the area that shows the tax rate, and it splits it between the maintenance and operation portion and the interest and sinking portion of the tax rate. And the last section shows the tax bill. The first amount, the $2,322, is $67 more than last year, and this is prior to any homestead exemptions being applied. Assuming the property does have a homestead exemption and no other exemptions, the tax bill is reduced by $116, or a $3 increase in the homestead exemption deduction that was received on the 2020 tax bill. Property tax assessed by the city for this property would be $2,206 compared to $2,142 last year, which is a64 increase. The monthly tax levy for the proposed budget would be $183.83, or $5.33 more per month than the current year. Next slide, please. So how is my total property tax bill distributed? This slide shows that your tax bill comes from city, school, and the county. The amounts shown are based on the average taxable value shown on the previous slide. The city represents about 22.5% of the total tax bill. The school district represents about 52.5%, and the county represents about 25% of the total tax bill. Next slide. And this concludes my presentation on the crime control district, the budget, and the tax rate proposed, and I'm happy.
Okay, any questions from council on that presentation? Seeing none. There she is. I'm waiting for everybody to come on board here so that I can see everybody's faces. So now we will move to the public hearing portion of the items. We have one person who would like to speak via video.
Yes, ma'am, we do. Mr. Venkat.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you. Please state your name and address for the record, and then give us your comments.
Okay, my name is Subbu Venkat. I live at 933 Brentwood Drive in Coppell, Texas. Thank you all. So I want to register my comment for the proposed tax rate. We are all living in extraordinary times today. And I want to thank you all for this opportunity for doing this virtually. Given that we are in extraordinary times, given that a lot of employers are frozen, they're not hiring, and even the federal government is trying to help us with some payroll tax decrease and all that. I think the council should look at it in a more diligent manner. I thank Kimberly for her presentation. Even though the tax rate was reduced, obviously the end of the day, we are going to pay more taxes because the valuation is going to go up. And compared to our neighbors, our homestead exemption is much insignificant at this time. So that has not improved either. So I want the council to be generous or even give in consideration that we are living in extraordinary times, and try to consider that people are going through difficult things, and how can we use the reserves that Coppell has and give a much more favorable rate. Even though the bar graph shows that we have reduced the rate, at the end of the day, based on valuation, it's definitely going to be higher tax, total bill for the property owner. So that's my only ask for you guys. You have done a stellar job through all this, and I want you guys to continue to do that, but maybe giving us a better rate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you were the first person to do this, so we are very happy that it worked, and we appreciate you taking the time and effort to make your comments today. We do have three individuals who have sent questions via the emails. The first one is from Sheila Goldsmith, and she says, the decrease being suggested sounds pretty insignificant for those who have lost their jobs. Since the public gatherings are not allowed now, those costs should be stripped from the tax rate. I am sure the city is wasting money in other places as well. And then two individuals have asked the same question. The first one is Al Enlow, and the second one is Tish Grivjala. And their question is, does the proposed city budget take away funds from the police department? If so, why do this, and where were the funds redirected? And the other person's question was, I'm a citizen and I just want to know why the police budget has been reduced by 10%. We do have Chief Barton here. You have heard in our conversations today that all of the departments have been reduced. It's pretty much across the board. And we do have Chief Barton here to specifically talk about the police. So, Chief Barton, could you answer that question, please?
I can't, Mayor. Actually, I think I can get them both, Mayor and Council. So the police department started looking at our budget, as did all the city departments. In early 2019, we were preparing for Senate Bill 2 and other things that may come out of the legislative body and other entities down in Austin. And so what we did at the police department, we did a deep dive into how our operations are ran, how our department is structured, calls for service, the crime rates, everything was added in. And we have been operating for several years with a deficit. We've always been about 7 to 12 officers down in terms of staffing. That's not unusual in the police world, especially these days. But we immediately knew we could get the 7 positions because we hadn't had them in so long. They weren't impacting any of our operations. And so today in Coppell, you have more police officers patrolling your streets than you ever have, even though we've frozen 10 positions. 3 of those positions were recent retirements by a deputy chief, a captain. Both of those members are in the command staff. We don't plan to refill those. We think we can run a more efficient operation with a little bit lighter from the command level. So we did reduce the motorcycle unit by 1 officer, but that officer was just moved over to patrol so that patrol could maintain its efficiency. And then we went through every line item in the police department budget and got rid of a lot of the inefficiencies and things like that. I have gotten this question a lot since all the protests and stuff began and the defund the police, and I can assure all the citizens that the cuts that were made to the police department's budget were made by the police department. There was never any pressure from the city manager or the city council at all. In fact, we made all these decisions before all this stuff erupted in the nation. We already knew we were going to make these cuts, and this was pre-COVID and pre-George Floyd. So these cuts were made by us. We think we can run a much more efficient operation, be better stewards of the tax dollars, and still provide the citizens with the same level of service. Actually, we're hoping it's going to be a little bit better with some of the moves we've made internally in terms of organization. And you will not see, I don't think a single person in Coppell will notice a difference in any of the services that the police department currently provides. And again, we're working on ways to improve all the time. So I hope that answers their questions.
Thank you very much for being here and for helping us with that explanation. It seems to be the $1 million question during these times, and I really appreciate you being here tonight. Those are the only comments that we have received, correct? Council, we are here to just take public comment only tonight. So we will open and close the hearing, and then we will look at, we have asked if anybody else is here tonight and or watching tonight and would like to ask a question. We are asking you to email cmo@coppelltx.gov, and staff will be happy to get answers back to you, and then they will also share those with us as well. And also, you can get our email addresses from the website and be happy to email all of us and tell us anything that you would like us to know, as we will be looking at adopting a budget on the 15th at 6 p.m. And I'll go over that again in announcements just to make sure. So I will entertain a motion to close the public hearings for items 9, 10, and 11. Councilmember Mace.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to close the public hearings for items number 9, 10, and 11.
Second by Councilmember Roden. All in favor?
Long, Kenosa, Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Tehan, for your assistance.
Thank you.
And Chief Barton, thank you. Okay, now we are on to item number 12. This particular item, Mayor Pro Tem Hill has recused himself. He has a history, and regarding this item, he has been involved in some of the decisions in his history, so he believes, after looking at our code of ethics that he should recuse himself. So he will be muting and turning off his video for the conversation and the vote on this particular item. So it is item 12. This is a public hearing, so I open the public hearing. Consider approval of PD 140R-SF DeForest Road fence section removal, a zoning change request from PD 140SF to Plan Development 140 revised single family to allow for the removal of 550 linear foot portion of the screening fence on the south side of DeForest Road and on the north side of the alley abutting properties addressed at 802 through 838 Cheshire Drive at the request of the Lakes of Coppell HOA, being represented by Bob Armstrong. And we have Mr. Steer here for the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, Council, good evening.
Matt, your audio is not working.
Can you send me a phone number to call in?
I'll send you one in just a second, Matt.
Okay.
We'll have to give it just a second.
Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Julian, what's the meeting ID?
So it's in the email. Let me send it again. I just can't mention over the air. That's why.
To Zoom, enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
I'm sorry, I can't find it in here.
You have not entered any
Webinar
number.
ID?
Please re-enter your meeting ID.
Matt, try to talk again because you're coming through now.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Please re-enter your meeting ID followed.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Well, I apologize. I had this all set up, and this happens occasionally, I guess. So next slide, please. Mayor, Council, good evening. This is a public hearing for a PD amendment that pertains to the removal of a portion of the wooden fence generally located between Lake Forest and Allen Roads on the south side of DeForest. Next slide, please. First, let me give you a little history about the wooden fence on the south side of DeForest. It runs on the south side between the street and the alley along the north side of Raintree Village and the villages of Coppell phases 3 and 4 subdivisions. The Raintree Village subdivision was approved in 1985 with the provision of a brick screening wall being constructed as required by the zoning ordinance. Later in 1991, the villages of Coppell phases 3 and 4 were approved just to the east of Raintree Village subdivision, with a provision that a photinia landscape screen be installed, irrigated and maintained by the HOA, as allowed for in the zoning ordinance.
Then in 1996, a wooden fence was approved to take the place of the brick wall and a portion of the Photinia landscape screening. This is what's in place today. The subject property is zoned PD 140 SF. It was approved in September 1995, and this contained the villages of Coppell phases 3 and 4, and is the zoning that would be affected if the segment of wooden fence were to be removed. Next slide, please. We understand there's concerns related to the entirety of the fence along the forest. It's my understanding that the HOA is currently putting together plans for fence replacement, and this is a component of the fence that would not have to be replaced if approval is granted for removal. The proposal is to remove a portion that's really not serving any screening purpose. The fence is actually being screened by a decorative white railing that was installed with the DeForest Road reconstruction project done in 2012, which elevated this section of roadway. You can see here's some images looking towards the alleyway off of DeForest. Next slide, please. And here's another image, which is westbound on DeForest. This is submitted by the applicant showing the railing. And if you look really close, you might be able to see a portion of the fence behind it. Next slide, please. The only concern staff had regarding this proposal was that initially they were proposing to take out the entire fence that parallels the white railing. And through site visits, discussing it over with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and as agreed to by the applicant, the last 75 feet of the fence is actually serving a screening purpose. So we're proposing that remain, and the applicants agreed. So they've revised their proposal to eliminate this portion, and they've also agreed to eliminate or to remove any voluntary trees or weeds that have grown up in between the white railing and the wood fence with their fence removed. Next slide, please. Because this fence is a variance to the zoning, the applicant's proposing to amend the PD in which the fence lies. It's a rather large PD, and it includes, as I mentioned, the phases 3 and 4 of the villages of Coppell subdivision. So we sent out 341 letters or notices within 200 feet, and we received 9 responses in favor, 1 undecided, and 1 opposed. Some of the ones in favor still expressed concerns over the entirety of the fence and how it was in disrepair. 1 was undecided. The one that was undecided actually said they wanted to remove it all the way to Allen Road, which would be more of a fence removal. And the one that was in opposition was actually concerned about the views looking from DeForest Road into the alleyway, and possibly being able to see into the alleyway, as well as if this section were removed, that the applicant would come forward and ask for future sections to be removed. We sent out 336 courtesy letters and within 800 feet as required, and received no response in favor. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a video going eastbound on DeForest. And so, Julian, I'm going to ask you to start it, but I'll stop you at certain sections here. So go ahead and start the video, please. Okay, and then stop here. So where he's, go ahead and start it back up. If you hit pause, there you go. You can start it back up and then hit pause. Well, in the middle of your screen, what you see is the beginning of the segment. So go ahead and hit start. So on your right is the segment that's proposed to be removed. Continue on, and the second power pole on your right, if you could stop at the downward slope, that's the first power pole. Keep on going, and then stop it as we get to the second power pole right there. And so that second power pole onto the end of the white railing would be where they would, the fence would not be eliminated. So everything else would be eliminated. Next slide, please. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of PD 140R single family DeForest Road fence section removal subject to the following conditions. One, that the fence removal shall be limited to the segment from the southeast corner of the alley right-of-way at DeForest Road to the section of fence that's 75 feet from the eastern end of the white railing. And the second condition was that the vegetation that's growing between the bridge and the fencing be removed with the removal of the fence. So we've met with the Lakes of Coppell HOA several times regarding this issue to go through the conditions of the fence along the entirety of DeForest and the repairs that are needed. And we continually work with them. We think this is the first step in their attempts to put together some estimates and come forward with a replacement of the rest of the fence. So that being said, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the applicant have someone here tonight?
Yes, ma'am. So Ed White is representing the Lakes of Coppell HOA tonight.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
Good evening. Glad you're here. Could you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Ed White. I live at 208 Spyglass in Coppell, in the Lakes of Coppell.
Thank you. And do you have anything else you would like to add?
Not a lot more than what Matt has added. Bob sends his regards to the council and to you, Mayor. He could not be here, and some of you may know we're praying for Bob and his family right now. Essentially, what Bob had represented in his meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission is where we're at today. We see this as the first step of trying to figure out exactly what to do with the DeForest Road fence, and this is a first step in the right direction. Absolutely agree with the revisions that Planning and Zoning requested and very much appreciate your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Has anyone signed up to speak?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now I can turn it over to council. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. Councilmember Mays.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm not sure if this question is for Ed or for Matt, so I'll kind of leave it open. This topic has been at the top of Bob's priority for quite a while, and unfortunately he's got bigger issues going on, so his absence is completely understandable, and in fact our prayers are with he and his family. Was there any opposition to any of the ownership along the fence line on the removal of that wooden fence?
I don't believe so. The one letter of opposition, let's see here. Was from that was undecided, 940 Brentwood Drive. So no, it was not along that portion.
I know this has been a very contentious topic, and it has been very difficult to find a solution. So I applaud the parties that have been involved that are at least coming to this level of a compromise or consensus. So, Ed, is there any downside to either one of the neighborhoods on removing the fence from your perspective?
You know, as we saw with Matt's great pictures and video, I'm not sure that I see a downside at all. I actually believe that it will be more appealing to look at without having that wooden fence effectively just a few feet set behind the white concrete railing that is there. I think it's, like I say, I think it's going to be prettier to look at, more appealing. And my personal opinion, I can't speak for the rest of the Lakes of Coppell board or et cetera, but my personal opinion is I think that that's conducive to higher property values because it is more appealing and things like that. I know that while we have met quite a few times with city and various departments and staff and worked with Matt and planning and zoning, et cetera, we're trying to figure out, like I said earlier, the best way to do something with this section of fence so that it does look better and it's something more of eye appeal and a source of pride for the residents.
Well, thank you very much. After reviewing this multiple times, I'm agreeing with your opinion as well. So thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you.
Councilmember Roden.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just say that, yeah, I too have been involved in many discussions about this particular fence. I applaud the parties for coming together and coming up with some compromises. I know that work has been done on the wooden fence to make repairs, to make it more presentable, and hope that the HOA will both continue that and also look at replacing it. But as I've driven this and talked to various members of the HOA, it really does not make sense to maintain and or replace the fence behind that white railing where you can't even see it. So I think this is a good first step.
Councilmember Hinojosa Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. And I echo both Councilmember Roden and Mays in that, yeah, this discussion's been going on for a long time, and I'm pleased that that there's been discussions between all the parties, and it sounds like there's a plan to move forward and one that is good for everybody involved. So I appreciate the conversations and the fact that we've come to what looks like a good resolution.
Councilmember Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, I have a question for you, Mr. Steer. The last 75 feet will remain intact. Who will maintain that?
That'll be the Lakes of Coppell HOA.
The repair and all that?
Yeah, they'll continue the maintenance and repair.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Mays.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to close the public hearing and approve item number 12.
Is there a second? With conditions, I'm sorry.
With conditions, yes.
Thank you, City Attorney. So is there a second? Councilmember Roden? All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew. In favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. White, for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Councilmember Hill can come back. But, well, there's no place. Welcome back. Okay, item 13. This is a continued public hearing. Consider approval of PD 295RHC, a zoning request to change from PD 295HC to PD 295RHC to approve the detailed site plan to allow for approximately 73,190 square foot, 4-story hotel on 2.675 acres of property located on the northeast corner of State Highway 121 and Northwestern Drive, as requested by Mike Clark on behalf of Archway 121 Coppell Limited. And Mary Perron Boswell is here. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This item was tabled or continued at the last meeting in September. Discussions with the applicant. They are still working on the easement items from the meeting before. So they are requesting, next slide, please. They are requesting that this public hearing be continued one more time to October 13th.
That makes for a quick item. Does anybody have any issue or question regarding this request? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Hinojosa Smith.
I move to continue the public hearing and I guess continue it to October 13, 2020 for item 13.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Councilmember Long. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew, Hill in favor. None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming with us, even before it was such a short period. Item 14, consider appointments to the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool Board of Trustees and authorizing the mayor to sign.
Thank you, Mayor. We've received our official ballot for the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool Board of Trustees, and if you would like to select someone from the list, we would send in the ballot for you.
Could you read the people that were on that list?
Yes.
I would propose these names.
Okay. For place 1, Robert T. Herrera is the incumbent, and there's not a second. Chris Armacost, and then for place 2, John W. Fullen. For place 3, George Hyde, Roy E. Maynor, and Jeffrey Snyder. Place 4, Robert S. Hawk, Dave Martin, Kimberly Mesmer, Sean Overridner, and that is it.
I meant to the names.
I understand. No, I am so sorry. Okay, Robert T. Herrera for place 1. John W. Fullen for place 2. Jeffrey Snyder for place 3. And Robert S. Hawk for place 4. That is it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, I propose those names for our ballot. Anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to accept the votes that you have.
The ballot as presented?
Ballot, yes, absolutely. Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I'll stop there.
Thank you. Second by Councilmember Matthew. All in favor?
Long, Hinojosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew, Mr. Hill. In favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 15 is City Manager's reports, project updates, and future agendas.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to give you an update. I'll start with probably what's the most fun and entertaining is Fletcher's is coming on October 24th at the Scare on the Square from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So that's Fletcher's Corn Dogs, October 24th, Scare on the Square from 11 to 2 p.m. Now, nobody will hear the rest of my announcements for the rest of the
I'm putting it on my calendar.
From 11 to 2 p.m. So just very quickly, Mayor, there's several announcements to make. Allies and Community is now accepting applications for Cohort 3. Applications will be accepted through September 18th, 2020. If you're familiar with the Allies program, it's one of those that builds bridges and fosters a sense of belonging in our community. And we just hear tremendous reports and advancements for building relationships in the community. The introduction and orientation session will be on Tuesday, October 20th. And then the cohort will meet 12 two-hour virtual sessions on Tuesdays from 6 to 8, beginning on November 3rd. I will tell you that that's what their plan is, and hopefully with advancements with COVID-19 and a vaccine, that they could actually start meeting in person and having those great dinners that they share. So we just encourage our folks in our community to sign up. The City of Coppell recently joined the Texas Power Switch program. There's an FAQ online that just explains that program more and more. But basically what it amounts to, it gives our residents an opportunity to potentially save money on their electricity bills. It's free to sign up. There is no obligation to switch electricity providers. The city does not receive any compensation for this, nor do we pay any cost to participate. It's simply a program that allows our residents to shop for the best rates of electricity. The next auction is actually on September 15th. So if you want to participate, go to coppelltx.gov/Texas Power Switch, and you can find out more information there. Again, that is strictly an option for our residents to choose. As far as voting goes, we know that this election is going to be quite an election. I think we've told everyone that the voting will take place here at Coppell Town Center, as well as the Coppell Arts Center, beginning on October 13th. To help with the voting situation, voting in 2020, there's going to be a virtual program on September 12th at 2 p.m. As the League of Women Voters answer questions and separates the facts from fictions and fear. Attendees will also hear from Crystal Patinas, the city secretary, about what voting will look like in Coppell this year. Ashley, will she be? Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was going to be you or her. The program is designed for adults age 18 and up, and although teens are welcome. The program will take place on Zoom, and registration is required. So we highly encourage everybody to participate in that. One of the things, just from a general commentary related to the election, since now the straight ticket voting is no longer allowed, one of the things that we're trying to let our citizens know is expect things to take longer. So patience is going to be something that's a virtue that needs to be applied.
And please make it all the way to the bottom of the ballot, because that's where your local races are.
Yes, absolutely. So anyway, so that'd be a great program, and you'll be seeing some more information about that. Something really cool that's going on, the Parks and Recreation Department is hosting Sunset Social Distancing virtual trivia nights on Friday nights in September. Registration is free. Participants will be able to register as individuals or families for any of the 4 dates in September for games of trivia. Each trivia will begin at 7 p.m. Registration participants are encouraged for ages 16 and older, but the whole family can join, including the kids. All the teams will compete for a variety of gift cards from more than 200 retailers. Again, learn more at coppelltx.gov/events. This year, Kaleidoscope, a celebration of art and cultures, will be observed virtually throughout the entire month of October. The virtual platform will showcase the unique community fabric in Coppell, and this year residents are invited to contribute to the celebration. Through September 21st, email stories or photos of cherished elements of your culture, from cuisine to traditional dress to home decor, to the parks at coppelltx.gov. Participants are also encouraged to send recipes for a favorite dish or a sentence or two highlighting favorite things about their culture. Staff will complete the information submitted to create a Coppell cultural scrapbook to be shared with online. So you can visit coppelltx.gov/kaleidoscope for more information. Just thinking about just coppelltx.gov, and there's lots of stuff there for you to do this time around. And then just as a reminder, not that we have anything going on this weekend here at Town Center, but on Friday, I believe, the east parking lot next to Town Center is going to be closed because the chiller and the makeup air units are going to be installed this weekend. So this is the big weekend. There will be cranes and other equipment staged in the parking lot all weekend as the contractor works. This should be the last weekend for major equipment installation. Future work will not disrupt operations, meaning if you come in on weekends, like some people we know, you can come back to coming on weekends. So, Mayor and Council, that's all I have to announce. Oh, and by the way, Fletcher's Corny Dogs will be here on October 24th at the Square, the Scare on the Square. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickle from 11 to 2. That's correct. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the city manager? Okay. Mayor and council reports. I want to remind one more time that the city council will hold the virtual meeting to approve the budget and the tax rate on Tuesday, September 15th at 6 p.m. Council members will be following social distancing protocols and conferencing in remotely to the meeting. Please watch live stream or view the recording at your leisure at coppelltx.gov. Those wishing to have a comment read at the public hearing should email such comments to City Secretary, and it's City SEC at coppelltx.gov by 2 p.m. on September 15th. And all that does is that makes sure that it gets into the record. And then last, please, if you have some time and you have some interest, participate in your local government and give back to the community by serving on one of the individual boards and commissions that help guide the development and the future needs and the regulations and much, much more for the city of Coppell. Applications are accepted online now through September 25th, 2020 at, again, coppelltx.gov/boards. Are there any public service announcements that anybody would like to share? Hearing none, seeing none. We do have necessary action from the executive session, and our city attorney has 2 different items to read into the record. You had a... Oh, yes, Friday 9/11 at 8:30 here at City Hall. It is virtual, and you can, again, coppelltx.gov, you can view it live streamed.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As a result of executive session, there are 2 motions which I wish to propose that the Council would consider. First motion is to approve a real estate option agreement by and between the City of Coppell and the Coppell Independent School District to approve an option to purchase by the City of Coppell a 2-acre and 3-acre site located at Sanders Loop on East Belt Line for an agreed price and a fair market value on the 3-acre tract, respectively, for a 3-year period, and to authorize the city manager to sign.
Council, is there a motion? Councilmember Mays.
I so move as read into the record by city attorney.
Thank you. Is there a second? There were none, and then all of a sudden, Mayor Pro Tem Mark Hill. All in favor?
Long, Hinosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew Hill in favor. None opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And City Attorney, Mr. Bob Hager.
Yes, second motion.
Second
Mayor.
motion, please.
Motion to approve an amendment to the city manager contract with Mike Land as amended for his position of city manager without a salary increase, and to authorize the mayor to sign.
We have a motion from Councilmember Long. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Hinojosa Smith. All in favor?
Long, Hinosa Smith, Mays, Roden, Matthew Hill in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much. There being no additional business to come before this group, we are adjourned at 9:09. Thank you all. Have a great evening. And oh, by the way, Fletcher's is coming.